are ghosts? This is an attempt to explain the phenomenon. When we were little kids, hearing the word ghost made us panic. We heard it from various people, not necessarily from our peers. How many times did the elders not use it to prevent us from going somewhere? An old, dilapidated house often harbored a ghost. Well, we do have a lot of poltergeists going on in old buildings in the UK and even in the US. Now, the remote forest was a refuge for ghosts, but also for other creatures, elves, fairies, goblins, demons, of all things, depending on the case, and all the further outside the city one lived, the more incidents increased, and we wanted to believe anyway, the unknown, the inexplicable, the foggy, the mysterious fascinated us. As long as we weren't alone, things were changing there. The remote forest was a refuge for ghosts, but also for other creatures, elves, fairies, goblins, and demons, of all things, depending on the case. One could say that everything is simple and ends like this: imaginations of small children, without dwelling on the conceptual and grammatical analysis of the word fantasy, which will essentially lead us to the start of our topic. We are confronted with a reality sealed by thousands of events and incidents, with protagonists in our fellow human beings around the world. All ages and not just children. These incidents that come to us both from the recent but also from the distant past. The spoken word and the written word are the train cars of experiences around ghosts, but even in today's era, with the rapid technological development in audiovisual data and media, sensitive audio and video devices come to cause problems rather than provide solutions. It's perceived mainly through such devices, some form of presence, quote unquote, without most of the time being able to attribute any characteristics to determine its form, and this presence is simply recorded. What needs to be emphasized is that the accidental or intentional meeting, looking for ghosts, strongly spreads the feeling of fear, but also of awe for this undefined. Such an encounter, in addition to the fear, surprise, awe, reflection, even mental turmoil that it creates, brings a person who has lived such an experience to a possible revision of his view of the human entity after death. We accept that which makes a body, a set of billions of molecules, move, think, act, create, is this form of life energy that we call soul. The separation of this energy from the body, which is death, inactivates these billions of molecules and cells, bringing about their wear and tear and decomposition of the body. Of course, there are exceptions. The bodies of saints are incorruptible. Now, from physics, we know that no form of energy is lost, but dissipates and exists. At this exact point begins one of the greatest mysteries, which is the beginning of the basis of dozens of scientific, metaphysical, and religious theories. Of course, the course of this action is in all probability prescribed, both in space and time. The frequent mention, mainly by the Church, of the 40-day wandering of the souls may be a transitional stage of this process. For 40 days, basically, they're close to us. It has been observed that during this period, the presence of souls, ghosts, is possibly in the places where they lived their last moments, in their favorite places, in their home, near their own persons, relatives, friends. This presence is manifested by the appearance, the movement of objects, and some noises. At this point, it's good to not associate these appearances with poltergeist phenomena, spirit summons, or even psychokinetic states, phenomena that often lead to unpredictable, uncontrollable, and even negative developments for those involved. In the case we are referring to, the anguish of souls is expressed to leave the dimension they experienced before their death. In some cases, and these are what create this great chapter of ghosts, for reasons unknown to us, souls are trapped in a complicated intermediate state where the solvent, the catalytic agent of solution or redemption for them is unknown. The inability on the one hand to come back to life, but also the completion of the stage towards complete cutting off and placing them in a new dimension in space-time is a form of condemnation. The existence of ghosts seems to be associated with the unjust or tragic death, a death of a small child from a sudden illness, the murder of a husband by his wife's lover, the loss of a platoon of soldiers by the mistake of its leader, the death of someone from the brutal blows of his tormentors, the unnecessary pushing and gruesome death of a beggar on the subway tracks, the sinking of a ship with its crew when the ship crashed on the rocks during the night storm because the lighthouse keeper neglected to light it, hide an injustice that its victims are unable to accept. In the case of the Drosoulites in Crete, at this point it's worth mentioning the case of the Drosoulites in Crete of Greece, specifically on the south coast, a place called Frangocastello, in the south of the prefecture of Hania. And here, according to historical data, during the Turkish occupation, a Greek military force, 305 soldiers coming from northern Greece, Ioannina, led by Hadzi Michalis after initially capturing the fortress from the Turks, then lost it again, and all its warriors were slain. The lifeless bodies were thrown into some chasm behind the walls, and where it is, as it is said, the unburied bones of these people were found to this day. Since then, and during the first days of every June, these soldiers come to make their existence known by their presence on the castle walls. The phenomenon occurs during the first moments of sunrise, just before the sun rises, with the morning dew, the Drosoulites, and lasts about 8 to 10 minutes. In other words, every beginning of June, basically it's the anniversary of their passing, they make their appearance, and it lasts for about 8 to 10 minutes. I have not seen that myself, but I have heard that. The shadows of the soldiers become visible and the shine of their swords, while some also speak of noise coming from the movement of the soldiers. In some of these appearances, panic was caused in the Turkish uprising in 1890, as well as in German soldiers during the Second World War. Some studying the phenomenon rule out examining it on the basis of parapsychology. They estimate that this is a play of the morning humidity, water droplets found in the atmosphere in the morning hours on wet days, combined with the beginning of the sun's course behind the alternating peaks of the adjacent mountain ranges. They also base their above claims on the fact that in recent years, when the climatic and atmospheric conditions on the island have changed and the humidity as a whole has decreased significantly, the phenomenon has diluted. In this specific reference, and regardless of what the truth is, there is a reality which is also injustice. This reason that we characterize as a factor in the existence of the presence of ghosts. These heroic 305 liberators of their homeland are buried, forgotten, literally thrown away in the abyss, next to a place where they did they leave though, their last breath, and as this injustice that does not let them permanently separate from the previous dimension and find peace in another one. Well, they should take some priests there and have a commemorative service for their souls, so their souls can go and rest with God. Now, perhaps a manifestation in various ways of their existence, of their presence in the form we're referring to, comes to pervert this injustice from their side. They hope for a restoration of the law, which will be the solution of their ties. Reports of ghosts are disputed in many cases. In many cases, those who are involved in them are ridiculed by their interlocutors. Incidents with great weight for the researchers of such phenomena are for this reason kept silent, thus passing the opportunity to study any incident and decipher the secrets. The defensive egoism of man as an outbreak of the impossibility of interpreting these phenomena is the cause of questioning, which in its extreme form becomes irony and ridicule. I would like to mention here also that something like this happens in the location of Marathon, where we had the Battle of Marathon, the Athenians against the Persians, where unexpectedly the Athenians won and defeated the Persians. And I think about 119 of the Athenians died, and they have them in the mound. That's a mound in Marathon. And every beginning of September, people hear groans and cries and clashing of swords and shields, and they believe it's the ghosts of these Marathon warriors. Amazing. Now, do the researchers' efforts bring results? The result of the supernatural in the subject of ghosts offers an endless field for the activity of thousands of people around the world. Paranormal investigators, psychologists, amateur ghost hunters, book writers, horror film producers, archaeologists, enthusiasts of ancient mystery religions, spirit seekers and summoners, psychics, exorcists, magicians, bitter relatives in search of loved ones, renters near haunted places, etc. Some of them, having taken the matter seriously and approach it with the necessary responsibility, have indulged in complex, systematic, but often time-consuming investigations of this phenomena. Having at their disposal from simple to complex electronic machines and devices, they investigate the unknown. They investigate the reports that come to them through rumors, specific assignments of research, and clarification of the phenomena, but also to a large extent in the context of scientific activities. And that's how they manage to film, even if it's ghostly presence, to capture them on cinematographic and photographic film. And also to record audio documents, sounds, voices, screams of pain and agony. The videos taken in the basement of a Victorian house in modern London is typical. A programmed video camera filmed the basement areas for 3 days. And they were able to record the presence of a ghost in the form of a dimly formed but brightly lit human body roaming the basement spaces. At the same time, the sound machine recorded sounds and strange faces and screams. I'm going to tell you now what happened to one of my goddaughter who lives in London, and they bought a house in a town outside of London that was basically the big landowner of the town. That was the house on top of the hill, and they bought it for almost next to nothing. It was ruins, but it was a ground floor and the first floor, and they had to gut it and refurbish it. And they every night they would hear children and grown-ups talking and running up and down the stairs, going to the top floor, and water and showers in the bathtub where there was no running water up there. So that house was full of obviously ghosts. And my goddaughter had to call the priest every month to do a house cleansing prayer with holy water. And it's not just her that heard the ghosts every night, but every day the workers' tools were strewn all over the place, and they had to gather their tools, their construction tools, before they started working. So a lot of poltergeists. And I asked my father confessor, I said, why is this happening to my goddaughter in England who bought this house? And he said, somebody in that house was obviously dealing with magic, with black magic. And that's why there's a lot of demonic presences there. And he told me to advise her to just be sinless and not to fear anything. So I just wanted to put that there. That's a reality. Now, visual documentation, and these photographs are the frame of shooting film, which is a unique document. We have the presence of a ghost of a small child who died in that particular house sometime before the shooting of the film began. And however, most successes in capturing visual or audio, such phenomena come in unintentionally and coincidentally. Now, should the existence of ghosts scare us? Well, if you, I'll tell you another thing that happened with a man that was renting to buy a home in somewhere in, where was it? Oh, I can't remember. I think Oklahoma, I'm not sure. He was renting to buy, and every night he would find himself pulled off his bed and lying on the floor, even in the living room. And he left me a comment, and I told him to call someone in New York, monk priest, and he left me a comment. He said, I found out, I talked to him for half an hour on the phone, and I found out that the cul-de-sac we were living in was built over an ancient Native American burial ground. So I asked my priest again, what should I tell him? What should I advise this person that leaves me comments about the poltergeist in his house? He says, well, since he's renting, tell him to leave and not to buy the house and go somewhere else, and make sure that the next house he's going to is not over a Native American burial ground. Okay? Now, going back to this, should the existence of ghosts scare us? The answer to the question proposes the acceptance of the existence of ghosts as well as the understanding of what phenomenon we're talking about. And this is because ignorance as a result of incomplete or confused information differentiates the perception of the event, often giving it the wrong dimensions. There have been people who, under the influence of such events, suffered serious mental disorders, often in an irreversible form, and maybe in the end the only evil that ghosts can cause is this. Now, how could anyone have such a contact? Well, I told you at least 3 personal examples. My goddaughter, one of my subs leaving comments, and the other things. Now, these are real. Now, we explained in previous paragraphs, in addition to the random contact, the search for ghosts is also done by people who have understood the nature of the phenomenon, and through this knowledge look for its aspects and its variations according to each one. And this approach is clearly far from acoustical and essentially acceptable, but also derogatory. Ghost hunting, perhaps this title is also an insult to human dignity, even after death. We're talking about unredeemed souls, suffering souls. In the months, the years, and centuries, we have to pray for them. Pray for the forgiveness of their sins. And we can do that, of course, for everybody until the second coming of Christ, which will be for judgment. I specifically asked my father confessor this, and he said, yes, you can pray for everybody, even your enemies, even your ancestors, until the day of judgment. Now, clearly, it's perhaps one of the most important factors which, together with the unfairness of death, makes up the uniqueness of the phenomenon. At this point, we must emphasize that the identification of the presence of a ghost with a place that creates negative awe, cemeteries, old castles, ruined homes, secluded ravines, is the wrong perception and disorienting. For research cases, the presence of a ghost can be anywhere, from the room of a luxury hotel, next to the train tracks, to the narrow corridors of an engine room of a merchant ship. What's important and worthy repeating once more is that we must treat the phenomena as a transitory, incomplete stage of the post-mortem course of the man, trapped in the components of the dimensions of space-time. These souls need prayer. Please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.